Hello everybody and welcome to Arma 3 Mission Making in 50 minutes or less, and today's tutorial is going to be about the user interface in the Eden editor. Before we get into that though, there is one thing I wanted to show you, which is the wiki page for Arma 3. So much of the stuff that we cover in the tutorial series, you can find more details on the wiki, and indeed today we're going through basically the interface in that kind of order, with covering those key points. Whilst there is a little bit more detail in all of these things, these tutorials are really designed to be a bit of an overview. So if you're looking for more detail, then the wiki is kind of where to find it. But more about that. So you're going to start when you get onto the game itself. We're going to go into the editor, pick your map. In this case, we'll use Malden just because it's the one that we use through the rest of the tutorial series. Okay, and so when you get into the editor itself, it literally drops you down somewhere randomly on the map. So there's no kind of way of telling. It changes wherever you go. In this case, apparently we're over on the western side. And it's from there, really, you jump onto the M key, brings you onto the map itself. You're going to go and start doing your editing and everything else that you want to do. But I tend to get myself into this position here before I then start doing any editing and having to think about what I'm going to do. And it's from here we'll go and start looking at the various aspects of the user interface. So that's press the M key for map and it gets you into this screen here. Looking at the top then, for the interface, the first thing you're going to see here is the menu bar, which is the same as any menu bar you'll find in a Windows program. The scenario kind of works as file, there's edit. There's a few things to note in view. So in view, you might be messing around with the vision mode. The hotkey for that is N. And quite often when you press the M key, you'll press the N key as well. You end up with this screen because you've got night vision on in the middle of the day. So that's a good one to know. But if you don't know the hotkey, then having a quick look in here. And there's a bunch of different things you can do in here as well, such as put on the map textures, which gives you a nice little overlay on the map itself, and a couple of other sort of teaks and tweaks. I don't tend to go much into this one of these menus in the menu bar. One thing that you will spend a bit of time in at the end of the mission making process is the attributes bar, and within there you're looking at the general tab is kind of all of this information that you're going to put down about the mission file. The environment is all the things you're going to use to change the environmental settings of the mission that you're making. Multiplayer is going to be a bunch of settings that you'll change in here if you're making a multiplayer mission, and indeed everything that we're doing in the 15 minutes or less tutorial series is aimed towards multiplayer mission making. And finally within here, performance as well, which is where you're going to make some changes and tweaks to allowing your mission to run at a higher frame rate than it otherwise normally would be able to do so. Moving swiftly on then, tools. I'm not going to go through all of these and talk about what they are, and indeed I don't tend to use tools very much at all. But you can see in here it gives you a bunch of different things, and there's some really cool stuff that you might want to use within the tool. So if I jump back out of the map, for example, as a hotkey, Control and G will clear your clear the area of the trees. But again, it's one of the tools that are in there. That's kind of just to help you when you're mission making, to lay some stuff down, what can be seen and what can't. Jumping across into settings, again, this is one of the things that you'll start looking at towards the end of the mission making process, but it's good to know where it is and what it does. So in here, you'll go through a bunch of the things from the game options of making the general, the difficulty, etc. And also for the add-on options. So if you're trying to tweak how the mission is going to be played and will play out, then there's various things that you're going to tweak in the add-on options to increase or decrease immersion and realism accordingly. That's normally why you've got an add-on in there. Under play is the various ways in which you can do mission testing. Personally, I go for my sort of go-to is playing multiplayer, because that's what it's going to look like when I'm on the ground, actually playing the mission for real. So my testing I tend to do in playing multiplayer as well. But there are other ones that you can do with various advantages and disadvantages. The main documentation under help is all in here. There are some Eden editor tutorials, give you some really simple stuff. So if we took placing, for example, you can see there it throws out this little dude, and it'll guide you around on how to do various aspects of Arma 3 editing, and then a bunch of documentation about. So that's the menu bar in a quick rattle through. You've then got the toolbar, which has got a bunch of widgets on it, and to help your mission making experience easier. So you've got the normal open save, etc., published on the Steam Workshop. If we're going to look at the there's an undo and a redo, and you can see the hotkeys that will come up there highlighted. So Control and Y for redo, and Control and Z for undo, as you would expect on a Windows computer. But let's grab a couple of things and chuck them down. I don't know, structure, I'll do. Airport, radar dome, that'll do. There's a big building. So look, when you select an object that's on the map, you can, in the editor interface, get that big yellow box around it, and then you can do these various widgets will come through and allow you to make changes more precisely. There are hotkeys that will do this. So for example, if I want to raise or lower this radar dome, pressing the Alt key allows me to go up and down. Pressing the Shift key allows me to rotate it. But the widgets here will allow for more precise actions, and in combination with the translation grid will also make specifics, but we'll come on to that in a sec. Area scaling is primarily for markers. So if we go back onto the map, press the M, you're there in the right in the first place. Drop a marker down here, you can scale stuff. There are certain things that you can scale as well, they're objects, but easiest for example, and indeed the area widget, which kind of allows you to do this, drag things out. But it also works for things like the modules. When you're putting down a module, I don't know, let's do a task hunt module for example. You can see here, you can drag it all out. So those tools there. Moving across, then you've got the translation grid. And if I just drop down here, this essentially is to move things around. So moving objects around. If we put that, and let's make it, I don't know, 32 meters to make it really obvious. Grab our radar dude again, or radar small. So you can see here, as we're moving it around, it snaps to 32 meter increments. That's what that grid's doing for you. If we go for the rotation grid, same detail, and you can do 90 degree, and it snaps through 90 degree rotation. The area scaling grid does exactly the same for your markers if you wanted to go for different increments on your markers as well. So those are your little widgets. You've also got, I skipped over, the widget in coordinate space, the toggle vertical mode, and the toggle surface snapping. We'll have a quick look at those three. So if I take off toggle vertical mode, then you can see, hang on, let's get back onto that widget. You can see it basically blends into the landscape, yeah, because it's not snapping to that vertical mode. Whereas if I turn the vertical mode on, you can see it then stays in the same relative position. So it allows you to basically move objects up and down a hill without them getting stuck in the hill. Surface snapping is not dissimilar, so but it'll also help with things like placing objects on, like, I don't know, let's get a table out, camping table will do, and snuggle around here. Let's get a leaflet. Leaflet, an old leaflet. So surface snapping, you can see on the indicator you get those two little blue lines next to the circle. That's it snapping to the surface of that table. So surface snapping, you can do that with a bunch of different objects and a bunch of different things, but that's what that tool does. For the widget in coordinate space, I get very confused with this one. Where's my table again? Table. So where it's rotation, it depends on if it's on grid space or coordinate space. So is it orientated to the world, or is it orientated to the object itself? And it's essentially allowing you to more closely control how you're rotating things in game. That are those three. What else is there? General controls within Arma 3. So there's a whole bunch of them. I'm not going to go through all the hotkeys, but if you want to move around in Arma 3, it's probably worth knowing how to do it. You've seen me do a little bit of it here, and now's as good a time as any. So right mouse button, press and hold, allows you to move the camera view up, down, left and right. Press the Q for Quebec key and you will go up. Press the Z for Zulu key and you will go down. W, A, S and D will move you backwards and forwards, and those are the only controls that we're going to cover today. What else is there that you guys need to know in terms of user interface? So on the left and right, you've got the two panels. The left panel, this is your entities panel. So as soon as you lay something down from, you select taking an object from your asset panel on the right hand side and put it into game. Let's do a rabbit. and drop it down, it then becomes an entity. So now this is something gone from conceptual, what stuff can I put down, to something that is actually in game, will appear in the mission, and will have a bunch of attributes associated to it. By double clicking on it, it will bring open your attributes menu. Another tutorial for another time, but it does exist. You've also got this locations tab on the left hand panel, and you can basically use this to bounce around to different locations within the map that are marked on the map. So that's quite handy and cool if you want to get to a specific place without bouncing around. What else do we have? On the right hand panel, so you've got the assets, which is essentially broken down into your objects, your compositions, which are pre-composed groups of assets, groups of objects, sorry. Triggers, you've essentially for game logic actions, waypoints for making your objects do stuff, systems for other kind of game logic type things, so how to make your guys do the things that you want them to do. Again, not going through all of them, another tutorial. And markers will always take you to the map because they're only ever on the map. Finally, on the user interface, down at the bottom, you've got a bunch of information here. And if I put down, let's grab some guys. Let's do that one, and this one, and some infantry, and some stuff and things. Okay, so if you look down at the bottom left, you can see you've got the X, Y, and Z coordinates. That's just to show you where the marker is in coordinate space. And indeed, you can press a dude. On here, I want a dude. I want one of the dudes, not all the dudes. You can see here the position there, and I put that down. It matches, it marries up. So there's my dudes. You've also got a bunch of information on here, and this will talk about the objects, the assets, and so on and so forth. So how many of all of these different things you've got at the top, you can then see how many you actually put down in game. If I cover up and select all of these guys, you can see there I've got 14 objects, 4 different entities, no triggers, and so on and so forth. So that allows you to just quickly check, have I got a lot in the mission, have I got too much, is going to be an issue in performance. All that kind of information is in there for you, available. Guys, that is it. Mission making in 15 minutes or less, and today we had a very, very brief overview of the user interface, covering essentially where the menu bar is, what the different toolbar is, and the left and right panels, and really just giving you a brief introduction and overview of where you can find various pieces of information that will help you in the game. So particularly when you're looking at mission making further down the line, you might be watching a YouTube tutorial and they're like, go into the menu bar and go and find this, and it's like, I have no idea what that is. Well, now we know. Any questions, please put them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks very much, you guys have been great. Take care.